This is my 96 core Falcon Northwest Threadripper machine. It is insanely nice. It is the fastest machine in the building by a significant margin. You may notice there's something missing from the table here, the display. You see, if you checked out the video, and I may have blown the budget on this machine, between the RTX Pro 6000 and 768 gigabytes of memory. Thankfully purchased just when memory was starting to get expensive, well before it 6x'd. I needed a good display, and so I found a good display, a shockingly good deal at Costco, of all places. This is the Dell 3225QC. I only paid $450 for this QD-OLED monitor. I cannot believe that this monitor was acquirable for $450. It's not perfect. I've already actually bought 4 of these, so I've already unboxed one. There's some gotchas we gotta talk about. But good Lord. So this QD-OLED, notice it doesn't have the ultra sharp branding or anything like that. I get why. The biggest problem with this monitor is it doesn't have DisplayPort, except it does. You gotta get at it indirectly. So in the box here, I mean, look, it's really minimal. You get a USB-C cable. This USB-C cable is not Thunderbolt. It's actually only certified and rated for 5 gigabit. It can deliver 100 watts at 5 amps. The display can charge a laptop up to 90 watts. So this would work fine with my GPD-Win laptop, but it wouldn't work with a laptop that's, you know, more than, I mean, like 65 watts is safe, 90, pushing it. Comes with a power cord. Those are the only 2 wires it comes with. Now, even though it didn't come with, I mean, I really wish that it had come with like a USB-C to DisplayPort cable or something like that. Fortunately, they didn't cheap out on the stand. The stand is actually nice. Dell, for this kind of hardware, is also eschewing its usual like Dell gray, like millennial gray and the subdued and muted silvers. It is this rough texture white finish. It's very difficult to clean this, and it picks up dirt like crazy. But it is a nice finish, at least until it gets dirty. Now on the back of the display itself, it has a 100mm VESA mounting port, and that's where the monitor arm clicks in. The cable bay also comes with a nice cover. And so the cable bay has your standard issue power cord, HDMI, the USB-C alt mode connection. So that's DisplayPort, but over USB-C plus a USB connection. And then you've got a USB 5 gigabit port here on the side, just the one. It also has a recessed hidden USB-C port that I'll show you in a second. So you get 2 USB Type-C ports, 5 gigabit. This is a 120 hertz display. It's capable of displaying 120 hertz. The annoying thing is that 120 hertz with DisplayPort plus the 5 gigabit connection, you're gonna have to use display stream compression in order to get that 120 hertz. And it wants to use 420 when you do that. Not fabulous. The stand itself, tilt, some swivel, really just to make it level. And it has a tall people compatible height adjustment. So if you're 6.5 feet tall, you can adjust it appropriately, which is awesome. The controls is a power button and a 5-way hat switch. I was kind of surprised also that this monitor, even though it's not an ultra sharp monitor, does actually have a reasonable factory calibration out of the box, or at least the other one that I unboxed earlier did. Now, getting this hooked up to my professional display, see those professional GPUs, they only have DisplayPort. They don't have USB-C. It is literally just DisplayPort. There's not even HDMI. If you're using a native HDMI connection from your GPU, that's fine. Linux users are also shafted here because HDMI is a second-class citizen on Linux, generally. And so it's like, okay. If you use a USB-C to DisplayPort adapter, you lose the USB functionality because it turns into just DisplayPort. But you have better display signal integrity because then it uses all 4 lanes for DisplayPort. So it's actually a good idea to not use the USB. Let me grab a cable. So this display also has the like California regulation. When you go through the on-screen wizard, which also tells you that it's got the color calibration stuff, you want to say yes to enable the following. And it's like, would you like to do spatial audio? Sure. And that's what the little camera does to figure out where you are so that it changes the audio a little bit. Now the connection here on my GPD-WIN with its 7000 series AMD CPU, fantastic. 120 hertz, it looks glorious. It's the QD-OLED that I've come to know and love. This is like butter for your eyes. The USB part works correctly. The 120 hertz part works correctly. You've even got OSD options for toggling between RGB and Y CBCR. It's pretty awesome. You can also up the brightness and get another warning about using too much power. Don't worry about it. Use the power. It's great. Butter for your eyes. Again, it's fabulous. These monitors also support picture-in-picture and picture-by-picture. It's just two inputs, the HDMI and the USB-C or USB-C, and with like a USB-C to DisplayPort cable. But you can set up a 50-50 split, 75-25, 25-75, 67-33, 33-67. You can also put one of the displays in the corner and toggle between them. This monitor does not have a KVM function, so you're not going to be able to toggle your keyboard and mouse between a laptop and a desktop, but it is surprisingly easy to switch between inputs. So if you wanted to use your laptop and use the input stuff on your laptop, just as I have here on my desk, and switch between the laptop and the killer Threadripper system, that is a perfectly reasonable use case with this monitor. You can do that pretty easily. You can also customize the inputs. So like you have under the personalized menu, a limited ability to set what the shortcut keys do. So out of the box, shortcut key 1 is the input selector, so you can hit that and toggle between HDMI and USB-C. Under the Others menu, it also gives you an indication of how good it thinks the OLED display health is, and you can also manually run an OLED pixel refresh. It also has a built-in self-diagnostic, which is useful in case you have to call Dell for technical support. I also want to call out a handy feature on the Dell on-screen display, and it's display info. It'll tell you what operating mode the cables are in. So like with USB-C, where USB-C is a cursed connector created by Satan himself, it has 4 lanes, and sometimes you can use some of the lanes for USB, and sometimes you can use them for display. In our case, out of the GPD-WIN, 2 lanes are used for the display, and 2 lanes are used for USB. But there's something cursed about the cable that I'm using because it won't link up at 5 gigabit, it's only linking up at USB 2.0, even though it's only using 2 lanes for the display. So, not optimal, but it's easy to troubleshoot those kinds of things because the display actually tells you. So this is really handy for figuring out why the executive's laptop is not working correctly, or like the webcam is complaining about having a USB 2.0 connection when it's plugged in on a USB-C port on the back of the monitor for pass-through or whatever. So really nice to see those features on this display. This is actually a very similar OSD experience to the Dell UltraSharps. I just recently reviewed the 52-inch, like the Cadillac 6K monitor. And the OSD is very similar. Even the picture-in-picture, picture-by-picture functionality works basically the same on this display as it does on the other one, except this is limited to 2 inputs as opposed to the Cadillac can handle 4 inputs, and it handles the resolution differences a little better. And for the features that I'm getting with this monitor, 4K, 32 inches, 16:9 aspect ratio, pretty reasonable built-in 5-ish watts audio. This is fantastic. There are a lot of comments online that this monitor is not bright enough. It is 250 nits. I've measured it at 250 nits, but I decided, let's do a side-by-side. This is the Aorus OLED that I reviewed previously that I kind of liked. So there you go. Out of the box, 156 on the Aorus. That's out of the box. I haven't cranked the brightness, but so there you go. Versus the Aorus that we reviewed previously, the brightness is actually a little better when you disable the power saving things and you turn off eco mode and you set display HDR 1000 and you crank the brightness. Yes, I agree it's annoying that you have to do all of those things, but those are things that are done to help preserve the life of the panel, fewer warranty calls, probably. And really, like, as a practical matter, I really do use this thing at like less than 150 nits of brightness normally. Like, it's not atypical. The Aorus is a little worse. It struggles to get close to 250. It's in the 200 to 215 range with similar comparable things turned on. And if you notice, the OSD on the Aorus also complains about, oh, this is going to increase the power usage, because I did that reset at the beginning. So yes, I'm comfortable with the increased power usage. Burn my retinas. So yeah, you know, out of the box, sure, I get it. The brightness is a little dim. Also, if you pick like the sRGB color modes, like the brightness does go down a fair bit, and then you know, that is a worry, concern kind of a thing. And yes, an ultra sharp version is going to be better, but $450. But you can get 1,000 nits brightness in HDR mode. But this is not an ultra sharp monitor, and it doesn't really give you a ton of control, but you can toggle it on in Windows, and it does support that. And because it's OLED, the blacks and contrast are, you know, off the scale, because black can just be, it's off. Now, because of the particular panel that this is in, it kind of has that sort of reddish gold tint. Like, it's not super black. Like, it's not like Vanta black. It's just that sort of OLED background color, like sort of you'll know it when you see it. And also like the silver colors. I've also done a ton of testing on the USB-C side of things. If you're using the USB-C port in straight DisplayPort mode, it works, even with a passive adapter. It gives you all 4 lanes, 8.1 gigabit. So that's fantastic. I was really worried that it was going to be a little problematic. It turns out it's the OSD setting. There's an OSD setting that lets you prioritize USB-C performance or bandwidth. If you prioritize bandwidth, it's going to be locked in that 5 gigabit for 2 lanes and 2 lanes for DisplayPort, because, you know, fundamentally there's not really all the bandwidth there. Once I set it to display priority, then 4 lanes, 8.1 gigabit, 120 hertz, everything worked perfectly. FreeSync was working fine either way. So if you got an NVIDIA GPU, you could toggle on yes, it's AMD FreeSync. It's completely fine. FreeSync Premium. And it will work fine on your NVIDIA GPU. Your AMD GPU will pick that up automatically and use FreeSync. FreeSync works well. Operating system support for FreeSync Windows is a little squirrely sometimes about reporting that and reporting the dynamic refresh rate. But you can get it to work even on NVIDIA with a little bit of finagling. But for gaming, it's pretty awesome, both on the HDMI side and the USB-C side. Now, if you're on Linux, remember, HDMI is a second-class citizen on Linux. This is not Linux's fault. This is because the HDMI consortium basically is sociopathic. They do not trust Linux users, even with the binary blob thing, and so they want the Linux experience to de facto be a worse experience. I think this is an antitrust type situation. Like, there should be an antitrust investigation because companies are effectively colluding to deprive consumers of their rights for media. The HDMI consortium is literally doing that, but nobody is equipped with the technical understanding to understand the horrors and evils that are being visited upon consumers, and so Linux suffers. And it's like, oh, well, you know, of course Linux suffers because it's an open source operating system and blah, 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 when the reality is it's a collusion to deprive you of your rights. So on Linux, the HDMI experience, not fabulous. You got the USB-C port though. The USB-C port is DisplayPort when you use it in that mode. You can use that in Linux completely fine. If you've got a DisplayPort to HDMI adapter, that also bypasses the HDMI problem on Linux. So if you use a good DisplayPort to HDMI 2.1 adapter, that will also be fine. I don't think that's as optimal of a situation as USB-C to DisplayPort, but there you go. It's nice to see high-end features on an inexpensive QD-OLED monitor. Oh, QD-OLED. So it's quantum dot. There's WOLED. WOLED is probably I think most people would say that it is a superior OLED technology. I don't know that I would agree with that in all scenarios, but QD-OLED is an OLED technology, but they are using a single color OLED with filters in front of it. And that's fine, and that works out fine, and the blacks are nice and deep and black, and that looks good, and I'm completely happy and satisfied with this implementation. Oh, and in case you're wondering about the Keychron Q6 Ultra 8K, there are a lot of folks in the Level 1 community that are militant about getting me to try this keyboard. I am a dyed-in-the-wool, like, I mean, a Model M enthusiast. It's a mechanical keyboard with buckling springs that date from the 90s. But that's not my first Keychron keyboard. This is actually, I think, the 3rd one. Some folks in the Discord got together to literally send me one of theirs. I think it was It might have been new, but it might have also been one that they got an extra one or something. But this is an extremely well put together keyboard. I'm thinking about doing a review on it. This one has banana tactile mechanical switches. It came with extra rubber feet and screws and a keycap puller, and it has a programmable overlay. It works in Bluetooth mode or 2.4 gigahertz or straight USB-C. It is extremely heavy. I like extremely heavy keyboards. See also the aforementioned Model M. But this is an exceedingly well put together keyboard, and I like this. I'm giving it a little bit of playtime here because if you're a Keychron model, engage below so that other people can see how many people in the community are fans of this. It's an 8K keyboard, an 8K polling rate, so it's really fast, except over Bluetooth, because Bluetooth isn't that fast. Bluetooth is only like 120 or 130 hertz. Like that's because Bluetooth, it's designed that way. But 8K polling, and it's got a volume knob built in, and you can, you know, mute things and unmute things. And I've been enjoying my time with this keyboard, even though it's got the banana keys, which are satisfying tactily, but not super loud. So yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about doing a review, but I haven't found anything egregiously wrong, and the battery lasts forever because it's, you know, 700 pounds and it's designed for maintenance, and you can swap the keys and do all sorts of other fun things. So yeah, Keychron fans, check in to let everybody know, and also if you have questions or you want to hit me up with more stuff on that on the forum, yeah. But this will be lurking in the background in some other videos, and we'll see. It comes with some extra keycaps too, so it comes with, like, you know, the option. It's got Mac mode and Windows mode. So you can swap out for Windows-looking keys if you demand Windows keys. But you know, Windows is in its sunset phase. They don't make some drastic changes. Yeah, I don't know. Keychron Q6 Ultra 8K. Let me know what I should know, and let me know all the bad stuff too, because, you know, that's what we do. That's why we have the forum, so people can talk. It's like, oh yeah, it's great, except we talk about it. It's a lot of fun. But it's been a lot of fun, sort of, for me exploring this keyboard and delighting in how well built it is, and I haven't had any major problems, but that's the story so far. But we'll see. Literally put this here to shut up the militant Keychron fans. You are seen. I get it. I'm the same way about the Model M. I'm similarly passionate about the Model M and the buckling spring, but maybe not workplace appropriate a lot of the time, especially if you're in a cube form. So I get it. I get it. Now, positional audio, what is that? That's kind of a bonus feature. See, the hack with these OLEDs is that when you're not looking at the display, it turns off or turns down. That is how they get the longevity out of these. That is how they extend the warranty. That's how they handle things. In order to do that, the display has to have a camera in it. Now, there's not a channel for the camera to get back to the computer that I know of out of the box. I mean, it doesn't show up as a USB device, and if there's no USB connection, it definitely can't do it. But there is infrared emitters on the little panel on the front of the display and a tiny little camera. And it knows when you're in front of it if you enable spatial audio, and presumably even if you don't enable spatial audio, because the camera, it makes sense to put a camera, I mean, it's presence detection. And based on presence detection, the display is not going to wear itself out prematurely. That is the engineering thing. We've seen that from a lot of other brands. It's going to creep some of you out. I don't mind it in the implementation, as long as there are no nation-state actors after you. And then it might be a bit of a problem if there are nation-state actors after you, because it's really easy to hide cameras and microphones and damn near everything. You gotta pick and choose your battles. The fit and finish of the display is quite good. It is a glossy finish. It is not a matte finish. So it's more like an OLED television than a display. The ultra sharp displays from Dell, they have a matte finish. It's really nice. It doesn't seem to negatively impact the sharpness. This is 3840 by 2160 standard 4K resolution and 16:9 and 32 inches. It is very well built. The display feels very solid. It's got some heft to it, but it doesn't feel unduly heavy. You know, some of these, the other implementations of OLED displays, they basically use the back of the display as a giant metal heatsink. So you're buying a hunk of metal, and those feel very substantial. This does not feel like that. So this is probably a later generation technology that doesn't require as much of a metal heatsink on the back of the display as prior generations. The brightness is quite good. 75, which is what it comes at by default out of the box, is just a little too bright for my taste. I tend to run it at 60, which will also extend the longevity of the display. But you know, after having used these for about a week or so, I'm very, very pleased. I think MSRP on these is like $700, which is still a pretty good deal in a landscape of similar displays for around $1,000. It doesn't have gamer features. It doesn't have a reticle. It doesn't have things like that you can enable. It'd be very simple for them to do that with the firmware, and they probably should, but it doesn't do any of those things. I don't think that's really much of a problem. At $450, this is a steal. Thanks Costco, who did not sponsor this video. Like I say, I bought 4 of these, so. This is definitely, OLED is definitely worthy of an interface to my absolutely bonkers, ridiculous Falcon Northwest workstation, which, by the way, you should check out that video if you haven't seen it, because absolutely bonkers. We were running like hundreds of copies of Doom on this thing. Completely bananas. Anyway, that's been a quick look at this Dell QD-OLED display. Don't know really what else to say. If I missed anything or you want me to test anything specifically for you, hit me up in the forum. I'm Modalist Level 1 Tech, so I'm signing out, and I'll see you in the Level 1 forum.